All right. So we finally got to the Civil War. So here we are, chapter 14, Two Societies at War. All right. So what you need to remember, all right, is that we've had all of these negotiations, all right, that the politicians, the ordinary citizens, everybody pretty confident that they were going to win, whether that be in the North or the South. Okay. So both sides were like, this is going to be easy. We're going to win. We got this. All right. A lot of people in the North and even the South figured like, maybe 90 days. This is going to be over. We're all going to move on with our lives. Not a problem. All right. That's what they thought. So, all right. In 1860, remember that slavery is part of the U.S. Okay. The Three-Fifths Compromises and the Constitution. We've had legislation that has dictated where is a slave or a free state. We've had popular sovereignty. We've had all of these different things. Okay. This is embedded in us at this point. All right. So just a reminder, right? Lincoln's going to win. All right. Here's the people he runs against. One last ditch effort that you guys do need to know is the Crittenden Compromise. Okay. And basically, this guy is going to come up with a compromise that says we will never be able to abolish slavery. So basically, it's going to say legislature, the government, they will never be able to abolish slavery, okay, within a slave state. So his idea was, let's just make this, if you're slave, you're slave. If you're free, you're free, whatever. The negotiations are over. Legislation cannot come after the slave states anymore. Okay. This didn't pass. All right. It was favored, obviously, by the South. It was drastically opposed by the North. It does not pass. Okay, so let's just look at the timeline. Lincoln's going to be inaugurated on March 4th, 1861. Fort Sumter in South Carolina, right off of Charleston, is going to be attacked on April 12th, 1861. And then by May, everybody's starting to take sides, right? So South Carolina is going to secede. Then we're going to have Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and then good old Texas. All right, so the Confederate States of America is established. You guys got to know Confederate States of America. All right, you have to start referring to them as that throughout chapter 14, okay? So we have the United States of America and we have the Confederate States of America. President is going to be Jefferson Davis. The vice president is Alexander Stephens. Secretary of State changes pretty much every year for the entire war. And then Secretary of War changes every year also. But one name you should probably know and remember is that the Secretary of War is John C. Breckinridge in 1865. They do have a constitution. All right. Inside of this constitution, they do get to collect taxes. All right. There is the 3/5 clause. All right. So population based on 3/5 of a slave. Okay. That, let's see, the single 6-year term for president. So that's all you serve is your 6 years. All right. Slavery is here to stay. Okay, and the Confederate States of America believes wholeheartedly in that. And for any amendment to be passed, it is the responsibility of the state legislature to do so. All right, so just a map to show you. Here we're going to have the Confederate States of America. Virginia, kind of sketchy because, right, I mean, you know, our capital's right there. Okay, but then we're going to get these border states, all right, because this section of Virginia is going to separate in 1863. They're like, yeah, nah, I don't think so. I don't want to be part of this, right? Then we're going to get Kentucky and Missouri. So these are our border states. And this is really important to remember, all right, when we get into certain things to explain why Lincoln does kind of what he does. All right, so here we have the Union, okay, population 22 million. 90% of the industry, 97% of firearm production, 70% of railroads. Navy is totally loyal to the Union, all right? And then they are going to actually in 1863 have the Enrollment Act, which is basically saying everybody has to fight the war unless, okay, you can pay somebody to go in for you, and then you can avoid the draft. This obviously is not going to make immigrants and poor people very happy in the North because rich people are just going to simply pay to get out of it. Okay. Oftentimes, this war is referred to as a rich man's war, but a poor man's fight. All right. This is the idea that the plantation owners in the South are, all right, and even the Northern wealthy are pushing for this war, but yet the poor are the ones stuck fighting it. And not many sides of them are very happy. We are going to have New York draft riots in 1863. Okay, so gangs of New York. That was real. That happened. Population 9 million, 3.5 are slaves over in the Confederacy. All right, they tend to fight more of a defensive war this whole time. All right, and really cotton was their key to everything. They were hoping that this would get foreign nations to side with them as they were the number one provider of cotton to the world. So they were hoping that that's going to help them out. Clearly should have been a win. Clearly should have probably been about 90 days. But these people, they're fighting for a way of life. Okay, just like the American Revolution, that tends to bode stronger and last longer. Again, just kind of, right, the idea that the North kind of overpowers the South in most every way. All right. Okay, in 1863, we are going to get the Emancipation Proclamation. This is going to be after Antietam, a final win for the North. Okay, we were looking for that Northern win because we were losing. We lost a lot. That was kind of a problem. Okay, so what this basically does, right? Remember, the Emancipation Proclamation only says if you are a rebelling state and you're a slave in that rebelling state, you're free. You're free. Slaves in the rebelling states are free. So that leaves the border states alone. Okay. That leaves states that are sitting there right next to the Union who's issuing this to have their slaves. So kind of a big deal, kind of a mark on Lincoln, but he wrote it, and it did have to sit and wait for a Union victory, which was Antietam. All right, so remember all of those things, okay? All right, so let's look at the war, the plan. Okay, originally General Winfield Scott's huge plan was the Anaconda Plan, and the idea was, all right, let's get the South surrounded, okay? Let's crush them, because if they can't export and they can't import, then they don't have a way to make money, okay? So let's have a naval blockade. We're going to surround the Confederate States of America. We're going to get the Mississippi River, okay, which is then going to totally cut, all right, the Confederate States, and they're not going to be able to get materials and soldiers back and forth to each other, all right? Next, we're going to need to get Richmond, Virginia, the capital, all right? And so that's the big plan. Anaconda Plan, Scott's Great Snake, okay? So remember this guy, all right? Remember the plan, remember the name. All right, folks, okay? Doesn't totally happen, at least not at first. Okay, let's look at the couple of turning points. First battle of Bull Run, first major battle. This was a huge blow to the Unions. Confederates take it, and they win. Huge, costly experience, and pretty much everybody's like, hey, I don't think this is going to end really fast. So next we're going to get Antietam, all right, where Robert E. Lee is finally defeated by George McClellan. However, this isn't going to make Lincoln very happy, because George McClellan, instead of chasing after Robert E. Lee, goes back to camp and sits there. He doesn't go after him. He wins it, and then he doesn't chase him. All right, Vicksburg is going to be another huge win for the Union. July 4th, it's going to fall, which is why Vicksburg doesn't celebrate 4th of July until World War II. They were a little bitter about it. So that means once we get Vicksburg, we get the Mississippi River, and thereby we do finally cut the CSA in two. And then we're going to get Gettysburg, okay? Gettysburg is going to be a win. Almost wasn't, but it ended up being one. We're going to have over 50,000 casualties, deadliest battle of the entire war, and a huge turning point because this was the South. This was the CSA coming into Union territory, going on the offensive. We beat them back, and then we started chasing them down. So we're going to have the Gettysburg Address at this point, okay? So you guys will have read this already, so definitely be familiar with it. All right, a little background information is the idea that the people planning the cemetery dedication at Gettysburg originally invited this guy, Edward Everett. He was a huge celebrated speaker during that time, and he spoke for 2 hours. Okay, he gave the central address. Abraham Lincoln was a last-minute thought. They thought, hey, yeah, let's invite the president. The Emancipation or the Gettysburg Address varies between 270 to 272 words. It's basically the version that you look at. He doesn't write down a formal speech. He just kind of goes off of notes, kind of. So all reprints are from reporters, so that's why it kind of varies. Good to always remember that a score is 20 years, so 4 score, all right, and 7 years ago. And the entire purpose of the war pretty much shifted with this speech, right? The idea is he, in 270 words, stole the entire event. Nobody remembers this guy, Everett, right? I have to look him up every year. Okay, but 4 score, 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent, right? The idea that we must now fight to come together. Okay, we must do this. We must be one nation under God. All right, we must all have this birth of freedom, and we must be the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. So we are now fighting to unify and only unify. There will be no slavery. He is anti-slavery. Still toying with colonization, but anti-slavery. So let's look at the North turning its tide. We're going to have Grant, okay? He is all about unconditional surrender, okay? He's going to finally become the general of the U.S. Army in 1864. This is going to help us get Vicksburg, all right? This is going to help us get the Mississippi, and this is going to help us chase down General Lee. Then we're going to have General William Tecumseh Sherman. Hopefully this name is sort of familiar for you. He's going to lead troops in Tennessee and Mississippi before he decides to embark on total war and something called the Scorched Earth Policy, whereby he's going to march towards Atlanta, Georgia, and set everything ablaze. So Vicksburg and Gettysburg turns the tide. Grant begins the hunt. All right, and Sherman is going to set things on fire. We're going to destroy the South. That's kind of the idea, right? Hit them where it hurts. All right. Make them cry for it, and eventually, with all of that, they will surrender. So the election of 1864 is going to see Lincoln against this guy, McClellan. Wait, what? Wasn't he a Union general? Yeah, he was, but he hated Lincoln, and Lincoln didn't really like him. He didn't think he was that good of a general. So they're going to run against each other, and Lincoln's going to win. So spoiler alert, we have that going for us. Then we're going to get Appomattox, April 1865. The Army of Northern Virginia, okay, is going to surrender. Okay, Confederate supplies have been shut down. They've been cut. Sherman was moving into the Carolinas. Richmond had been evacuated by this point. The CSA was so desperate for people to fight the war, they were looking at actually arming slaves and bringing them into the Confederate Army. So they were kind of suffering. But once we cut them off, all right, then Lee realized I can't do it. It's not going to go on anymore. So he is going to meet Grant, and they are going to issue a surrender. The terms are that officers and enlisted men would be paroled. They'd be required that all Confederate military equipment is relinquished. Okay, nobody gets their horses. Rations would be delivered to starving troops, though. All right, and the generals can ride off with their belongings, so they don't have to lose anything. They just have to go home. The irony of this is that Wilmer McLean was an American wholesale grocer from Virginia. His house was near Manassas, Virginia, which was right where the first Battle of Bull Run in 1861 took place. And after that battle, he was like, I'm out of here. I'm moving. He goes and he gets a place in Appomattox, Virginia. And then, that's where the war ended. So beginning and end, Wilmer McLean, kind of a good guy to know. All right, so the idea of ending slavery was difficult, all right, for Lincoln because we have those border states. He was looking for the re-election, all right. Fun fact, Harriet Tubman did serve as a nurse for the black soldiers in South Carolina during this time, while Clara Barton nursed the white soldiers. The Emancipation Proclamation, remember, freed slaves only in the Confederate States, the rebellion states. We are eventually going to allow black soldiers. So we're going to get the 54th Massachusetts, just like the movie Glory. Of course, they get unequal pay and unequal recognition. However, they will be celebrated eventually because of the sacrifices they made at their battle. And then in December 1865, we get the 13th Amendment, which is going to free all slaves. All right, so Lincoln is dealing with the radical Republicans who, not his favorite. They don't totally like each other, but that's okay. Conservative Republicans also kind of don't really like him. War Democrats definitely not so much. So kind of he's in this in-between state where people are like, Lincoln. So we're going to have some constitutional powers issues. So during war, every president does something to suspend our rights. Lincoln's going to suspend habeas corpus, okay? And then also civilians, he's going to say can be tried in a military court. These two court cases are going to say, I don't think so, you can't do that, Lincoln, but that is definitely what he was kind of doing. Also remember that during this time, okay, we have our money, greenbacks, he's going to open up land in the West. Manifest Destiny is at it, Homestead Act, get some piece of land, go farm, we're going to finish the railroad, okay? We're going to get universities and colleges out there now, okay? And this is a big deal. So the West is going to be settled while this war is going on, okay? Here's just the cost of the war. All right, something to think about when you look at this, total deaths. I mean, yeah, we didn't reach there until Iraq. So it was pretty costly, okay? Lincoln's going to win it, second election. Okay, and then he's going to be assassinated. The assassination plan was pretty big. They're actually going over for a lot of people. Lincoln is the only quote-unquote successful assassination, unfortunately. So just some Northern players to know. Okay, names to have, names to write down, get them in your notes. And then some Southern names to have, get them in your notes. All right, remember to update your big ideas, get this all in there. And then until next time,